After 4 years of doing this, and this year being a event about storytelling, we thought it would only be appropriate if we tell some stories. I don't think there's many stories from the EWBC, but what we've done is we've gone and asked ahead of time a few people in the audience to think of a short story, and that means a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, of a event or something that's happened to them that illustrated a point, made them happy, made others happy, made them laugh, or whatever. We're gonna keep these really short and hopefully get a lot of them. After we get going and you find you have a story you wanna share, look for me. I'll probably be on the side someplace, wave, and I'll come over and I'll try to see what you got, and we'll try to get as many people on stage as possible. Please encourage everybody. We have some people who are a little shy about coming up, but they want to tell a story, and we're very excited that they volunteered. Shy like me. Exactly, shy like Ryan, who's one of our more introverted characters, as we all know. I'm going to let him explain it a little bit more, but the main thing here is to have fun, sit back, enjoy, tweet about what you hear, and I hope afterwards you all go up to the people who do tell stories and let them know what you think about them, because that's really the exciting part of sharing something personal. Afterwards, we are going to say a few words to make sure that everybody ends up at the right place tonight for dinner, and we'll explain the rest of the event. So for now, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. O'Connell.
Stop it. Stop it. We don't have time for all this fandom. So yeah, it's cool to talk about storytelling all week, but now we should tell some stories, and I'm gonna start because that'll be a bad one, and then everybody will get lots of confidence. I wanna talk a little bit about coming to the EWBC last year and the effect it had on my life, because I went to a life-changing keynote on the exciting and sexy topic of the history of digital publishing. And when I first heard about that, I actually immediately fell asleep. But then I thought it would be irrelevant to me, and I went though. Oh, no, don't worry, it's a big story. I'll slow down for the benefit of the non-native English speakers. But I did go to the keynote though, because I was afraid Gabriella Opaz would beat me if I didn't. And no reaction, because everybody's terrified, apparently. that was a joke. So I went to the keynote, and I was actually very surprised that the topic applied very specifically to the kind of project I was doing. I'm a winemaker, and I'm always looking for new ways to tell the untold story. And it really inspired me to go home and try to look up a digital publishing solution and try to make a little book and get the word out about my tiny wine region called the Cabaldez, and try to get some people excited and relate it to some historic patrimonial pieces in France. And I did that with the help of a lot of friends locally and a lot of brainstorming, and I would email all the winemakers in my area because I wanted them all involved. And tragically, most of them don't respond. But that's normal, right? And eventually you coax them into giving you access to their photos and their stories, and because I wanted to include everybody. You know, a book, if you're promoting a region, has to be about more than just one winery, or else nobody wants to read it. And eventually I got lots and lots of help, little bits at a time. But there were some holdouts, some guys who didn't think it was worth saying no or anything at all. And it hurts a little, but you know, you truck forward, no permission necessary to write about the region. And well, we got the book out, and once it was done, once there was no going back, I sent a final copy to all the winemakers, and at that point, all the winemakers who had never bothered to contact me sent me long emails about how I had done it wrong. So I had my favorite, and this is it's a wonderful thing, because this winemaker who had never met me but decided to be very critical of my effort had a long list, and it enraged me because it was so mean, and it was 2 days too late. But it went, why did you put so-and-so in the book? Why is he in front of me? Why is that person there? Why didn't you put my grape varieties? Why is there an Asian child on the cover of this book? There's Yeah. That is the exact reaction I had. So my parents, my parents called the hospital because I was just like rolling on the floor, and I had been so mad. I was like fuming, and then suddenly this burst of laughter because it was too perfect. Like I love a lot of my neighbors. I hate a lot of them, and I love to hate the ones that I hate. Like I couldn't make that guy up, and I Facebooked it. I put that out instantly because that's obviously it made me laugh, and it made you laugh, and I knew that was a story. And it's weird because I'm trying to make this a beginning, middle, and end, but it's really just a punchline. But here's the thing. After I put that out, the book did pretty well, and I got really lucky, and a lot of people paid attention to it, and a lot of people have bought the book, and it's really great. But way more people have heard that story about why is there an Asian child on the cover of this book. And it's interesting because earlier today, we sort of drew this line about whether we should make things simpler or more complex. And I think maybe another paradigm would be to say entertainment or education, because those are less mutually exclusive. And I think my goal was to educate about the region, but unintentionally, this winemaker neighbor of mine was very entertaining. And it's okay that story had way more legs than the actual book. And I think you got to embrace that. And when something fun happens, you just share it with as many people as possible. And that's one of the takeaways I've gotten from the storytelling we've done so far this week. All right, that's mine. Who else wants to tell a story or share a story, make a story? Yeah? All right, Brett. I'm gonna give you the best one right off the bat. Okay.
Right. Stories. Life is full of stories. In 2005, I just sold my wine bar, which I'd owned in Billericay in Essex for nearly 30 years, and quite happy. And then I was diagnosed with prostate cancer, the dreaded C. What I will say this is a bit like a blue joke coming up. This is just for the men in the audience. But, possibly more important, it's for the wives, lovers, girlfriends to give them a nudge. Please get what is called, in English, the PSA blood test. It's suggested you take this from about the age of 35 to 40, an annual test, and it just tells you if you have the risk of suffering from prostate cancer. It doesn't tell you you've got it or not, but what they do is they track it and it might go up a little bit, and then, and this is the bit men hate, you go and have an examination. That examination was not much fun, but saved my life. And then I had scans, I was put on hormone treatment for a year or two, and then I was given radiotherapy. And as a lot of you know, with cancer, half the world have got it. You know, it's not as awful as it used to be a few years ago. You know, it was the dreaded C word. You can come out the other end. I am what is called in remission. Don't know. I mean, you would never really get a clean bill of health, but hey, whoever has it, you know, life ends in death, and that's it. Right. Okay, we'll go on a few years. I've had 2 years hormone treatment. I had hot flushes. Ladies, I feel for you so much. And anyway, now, for those of you who know London, know Trafalgar Square, Nelson's Column, there are 4 plinths, 3 with famous statesmen on, who won wars, who subjugated India, who did marvellous things for the British Empire. But however, for one reason, or another, one plinth has been empty. And a few years ago, various people, including Prue Leith, who is a cookery writer, started lobbying people and said we should do something on this plinth. And because we're British great vacillator's, not sure what to do. So every so often, so what happens now, 3 times a year, a different artist can ask to use the plinth. And this particular time, in 2009, there's a very good artist called Anthony Gormley, who celebrates the human form. In Austria last year, we didn't have time to go and see it, but he has dotted around Austria plaster casts of himself up mountains and things like that. It's absolutely stunning. Anyway, and his idea was to have someone on the plinth at every hour of the day for 3 months. And I went in the ballot for it. And as ballots go in, you put your names down. There are hundreds of names in this for 2,400 spaces. And suddenly, in July, I get a letter, you've won a space on the plinth. Oh, shit. What the hell am I going to do? And I thought about it. I'm very lucky to be given the slot on the plinth. I'm in wine. I'll do a wine tasting on the plinth, right? Then I got in touch with Prostate UK, who are a fantastic charity, who helped with lots of advice and things like that. And they said to me, you should go on the plinth, we'll be delighted you do it, but you must wear gold pants. So we have a little... So I wore my gold pants, and I've tried to find them, but I don't fit them anymore. So what I have got is the T-shirt. I went there and got the T-shirt. So I was lugged onto the plinth, and I did this wine tasting with the cape. And I can tell you, it was such a fantastic experience. You're literally there. You are given, you just have to be there 1 hour, and because Anthony Gormley wanted someone on the plinth all the time, you're taken up in a cherry picker, and you get on before the previous person gets off. And I thought, the hour, oh dear, what am I going to do? I did this wine tasting, went very well. I tasted the wine, everyone else listened about it. It's not really what I'd call engaging my public, but out of misfortune comes joy and a story to share, and I've been delighted to share it with you today. And gentlemen, please, please see your doctor, get the PSA test. Thank you.
Sexy. We're leaving that up for the rest of the presentations. Just 1 hour on the plinth, Brett. No, he's awesome, and he's one of the most charming individuals at the WBC. And one of the other things we're hoping to get out of this session is that you get some glimpses into these wonderful characters that sometimes keep to themselves, because he's also very shy.
Yeah, just watch out, ladies. Watch out, ladies.
So, does that inspire any impromptu ones? Yeah, whoa, that's all right. You want to use that one? Okay.
I'll take one for the team. Impossible to follow up. Before I start, absolutely impossible to follow that act. My name is Jason Kallsen. I come from the United States, from the state of Minnesota. My story is in a couple of different parts, but we'll wrap together at the end. My history that led me to here actually goes back about 10 or 12 years, Ryan, right around there. Ryan Opaz and I first met when he was a wine buyer at a wine shop in Minnesota. If you don't know where Minnesota is, think of the United States, put a dot right in the middle, go all the way up toward Canada, and it gets really, really cold, and that's where we are. That's where I am, that's where you were. And I was selling wine to Ryan for a good 5 or 6 years at his store. And one day I walked in there with my little bag of wine and said, "Hey, Ryan, you know, I got some wines to taste." And Ryan said, "Oh, hey, hold on. I got good news. Good news and bad news." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" "Well, good news is I'm moving to Spain." I'm like, what do you mean you're moving to Spain?" "Yeah, that's good news. That's good news. We're picking up. We're moving to Spain. No reason at all. We have no pets. We have no plants. We have no kids. Why not?" I said, "Okay, that's great. You know, what's the bad news?" "Well, I don't really know Spanish." So it opened up a nice conversation as far as, you know, what are you going to be doing? What are your plans? And he was talking about wine communication. He was talking about blogging. And I think I asked you straight up, what's a blog? What are you talking about here? And he had some idea about what the plan was, but not a concrete idea. And I asked Ryan, you know, "Are you scared?" And he said, "Well, I'm scared to death. I have no idea what's going to happen, but you know, you have to grab these moments when you can." And a number of years later, I became very influenced by a man named Steven Pressfield. Steven Pressfield, if you are a creative of any sort and you don't know who Steven Pressfield is, please write down the name Steven Pressfield and find his books. The main book of his is The War of Art, which talks about the struggle between creativity and living a true life without trying to take over the world with it in a one-dimensional fashion. And he just came out with a new book through the Domino Project called Do the Work, which basically says, don't just think about things, don't just talk about things, you have to produce. You have to create, you have to put yourself out there and feel the fear in order to live. And one of my favorite quotes from him is quite simple, and I thought about this quite a bit when I was going for a walk just before we came back into the final session here. If you find yourself asking yourself and your friends, am I really a writer? Am I really an artist? Chances are that you are. The counterfeit innovator is wildly self-confident. The real one is scared to death. So we all have permission to tremble a little bit when we find ourselves creating.
That was awesome too. So bar is getting higher and higher. It just gets worse and worse. Yeah, all right. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Anders. And I'm the guy who did that you all are dreaming of. I bought a vineyard. Yeah. It's up there, 13 months ago. All my friends after that said to me, "Oh my God, my highest dream is to buy a vineyard." "Oh, you never told me." "No, but I've always dreamt about that." I never dreamt about it. Never. Today I dream about it, mostly nightmares. Okay, Domaine La Rabidotte, that's my scene right now. It's 15 hectares, just a machine hangar, as we say. And AOC, Saint-Chinian, is beautiful. And I love it. And so the thing is, why does a fairly successful film producer give everything up to start making wine? Is there an answer to that question? Yeah, it's boredom. I was bored. Do you know that feeling? Have you been bored? So after that, I visited this place just by accident, and I stood on the heights of it and saw all over the place. It's beautifully terraced, facing south. You can see the Pyrenees at the end. It was purely love. 5 minutes, I was caught, and I said, yes, I take it. And that goes to another motto in my life: no research. Not very much. And because if you make too much research, you lose the faith and you don't dare. The initial feeling was, I want this, I can make something of it. And 13 months later, I have 2 harvests. I have one harvest in bottles, one harvest in tanks, so it's all working. So my first year started, and that's where my story starts, because I have some very, very joyful moments, but also very embarrassing moments, because I have read in books how to do this, but I haven't done it manually. I didn't know very much about this, to be honest. So I was there every day in the wine cellar. I was tasting out, this is perfect, this is lovely, this is the best wine in France, almost. And I asked people, and you know people, they are honest, they are polite, not honest. They are polite and they say, this is perfect, this is a very good wine. So after 2 months, I took some wine out, brought it up to Stockholm in a tank, 20 liters, I poured it into bottles, and I invited my best friends. I have a friend, she's working at the wine magazine in Sweden. I have some other friends having restaurants, and so I invited them all, and I said, okay, now it's time. And they were very, very curious about this. And of course, the result was so-and-so, and some said like this. So I said, oh, wait, things happen, so we go on. And I go back to the winery, and in April it's time for bottling. And what happens when you do the bottling? Yeah, you do the degassé. What do you say in English? Degassé. Degassing. And what happened on the other side of degassing? Just completely another wine came out. So I was too anxious, I was too curious, I was too hasty. But I have 2 lessons from this. It ain't ready till it's ready. And good friends always give you another chance. Okay.
You guys are so interesting. Yeah, another volunteer. I love it. My job is the easiest ever. Louise Hurren.
I need you to help me. Okay, you're going to get a woman's story. It's, yeah. So far it's been all men. So my story has a prop. It's
Me?
a ball, and you. My story is the story of a ball of string. I don't speak very loud, so if you can't hear me, say so. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay, so the ball of string it's really it's a metaphor. It's the story of my journey, if you like, and my journey started about 40 years ago when I was a child, living in the south of England in a place called Patcham, which is a little village outside of Brighton, which is a village on the south coast. I'm going to walk around a bit. You all right there? Yeah? You stay there. You stay there. Because you're the start of my journey. So my ball of string started unraveling in Brighton in, well, I guess we were somewhere in the late 1960s. And my earliest memory is of wine is my parents, who were very regular kind of people, who didn't drink wine, hardly ever, but when they did occasionally have people over for supper, they would buy a bottle that was shaped, can't do it with both hands, but like this. And it was Portuguese wine. It goes like that. Anyone know what it was? Yes, exactly. That was what people in the UK drank when they didn't really drink wine, but they wanted something on the table when people came round. So that was my earliest memory. So the ball of string hasn't really gone very far. And then I grew up and I moved to London as a student, and I worked in a wine bar just in the evenings. And in that wine bar, they served very poor quality Bordeaux, because that was what British people drank if they didn't really know what they were after. But you know, Bordeaux, it sounded like it was going to be okay. So I was serving glasses of poor quality Bordeaux and inhaling large quantities of silk cut, because in those days everybody could smoke still in bars. So that was my next sort of memory of wine. It was, yeah, poor quality Bordeaux and silk cut cigarettes. Silk cut is a UK brand. After that, I spent some time in Udine. Is anybody here from Italy? Oh, you're Italy, okay. Yeah, I did a degree in French and Italian, and so I got to spend some time in Udine, where I drank Fragolino, which I think is a sort of it's a red wine that had a strawberry kind of flavor, I guess, which is why we say Fragolino. You're Udine, aren't you? There you go. So we were moving on here. The string was sort of unraveling a bit better now. The journey was moving along, and after that, I spent a little time in Paris, where I didn't do anything great. I got very drunk once on Beaujolais Nouveau, and emptied the contents of my stomach into my flatmate's bath, which was not pretty, but there we go. So we've come about this far with the string. We're moving along. After that, I moved back to London. I started working in advertising. I went for quite a few client lunches, got the opportunity to drink some decent wine, but didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know what it was about. So the ball of string kind of unravels, but not in a very exciting fashion. After that, well, I moved around a little bit, but essentially I was drinking New World wines. I was still very much a UK person with a UK person's mindset. So the bottles I was buying were from Chile. I don't think we've got anyone from Chile, have we? Nope. But what else was there? Australia, South Africa. It was very New World, and it was always less than £5, because £5 was this kind of mental block that we had in the house share where I lived. You didn't want to spend more than £4.99 on a bottle of wine, for God's sake. So nothing very special was happening, and my relationship with wine was not really going very, very far. And then we had the breakthrough moment, and then something really good happened. You were waiting for the good bit, weren't you? The good bit was I moved. I changed countries. I moved to the south of France, to the Languedoc region, which is where Anders, who was speaking before, has his vines. So we both have very good taste. And that was really the start of my ball of string, my journey really sort of gathering some speed, because the south of France has an amazing variety of wines. We're able to grow, thanks to our climate, lots and lots of different kinds of grapes with which we make an amazing variety of wines. Oh, I'm in the wrong part of the room. And it all kicked off from there. I started to understand a little bit more about wine, what wine could be, what fun it could be, how exciting it could be. I started working with winemakers, trying to help them tell their stories. Normally, I don't tell my own story. I tell other people's stories, or I try and encourage them to tell their stories, because it's much better if people hear it from their mouths rather than from mine. Anyway, so there I am in the Languedoc, and I'm helping people promote themselves, and I'm getting into it, and I'm doing an WSET course to learn more about wine, so I get to taste wines from pretty much all over the world, and I start to travel a little bit. I go to South Africa. I get invited to Portugal, which was fun. And basically, the journey has just kind of carried on from there. And the point I'm trying to make is that, like this ball of string, I don't know where my journey will end, because I don't know how long a piece of string is. I don't know how much string I have in this ball. I don't suppose my journey will be as long as some people's. I know that there are people in the room who are studying to be NWs, and I don't think that's my gig. But it's a journey which I really enjoy, because it's about people, and it's the string, if you like, or the wine, which connects us all. You know, I like wine very much, but I love people. I like people a great deal. I like people, if I'm honest, even more than I like wine. Wine is the thing that brings us all together. It's what connects us. It's what we all have in common here. And to me, the string it's a metaphor for the journey that we're all on, but it's also fairly symbolic of what kind of connects us all, what ties us all together, if you like. So that is my story. It doesn't really have an end. I'm sorry, you wanted a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's got a great big middle that's all over the floor now. But I don't know. I don't know where it will end, but I've really enjoyed the voyage so far, and I've enjoyed meeting lots of people here. And thank you for being part of my ball of string.
I was terrified I'd drop it the whole time. This is the beginning of everything. I can't drop it. All right. Oh, hand. Yes. Yes. Come. Oh, and so if you get close to in front of the speakers, that's when the feedback happens.
My story is simple, so not without any special message. I'm not a native English speaker, so I hope you will understand, but that's not my mother tongue. And I would like to tell you a story about how to get to know a vineyard, a region. Because you have plenty of ways to get to know a vineyard, for example, a wine region. You come here with a group, or you have a press trip and you visit and know the grape varieties and so on. So I've had the chance to visit a lot of vineyards in these ways. But once, about 5 years ago, I was about to go to Bordeaux. It was my first time to go to Bordeaux. I'm from Hungary, and I used to work for the Decanter, the English magazine. We did the Hungarian edition of this magazine. And I don't know how much of you know Sarah Kemp, who is the publisher, top boss, the big boss. And she sometimes talked to me, looked down and talked to me. And she invited me to join them in Bordeaux. She said, well, we rent a house, so why not come and join us and stay in our house? It's much better, it's good to be together. I said, okay, it's good idea. So I took the flight and then a train from Paris to Bordeaux, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning by the time I arrived. I was very clever because I warned Sarah in advance that it will be very late when I arrive. Can you make sure that someone will open the door? She says, no worry, there will be a sign, there will be even a sticker on your room, so you will know where to lie down. So I was quite safe. But when I gave the taxi driver the address, he phoned, I think, 10 people where to find this place. I don't speak French, that was the biggest problem. The taxi driver didn't speak any Hungarian or English, or I speak a little Italian, but there was no clue to understand each other. But I realized that he has no idea where to go. So finally, perhaps his grandfather or someone told him on the phone where to start. So we drove. About an hour passed, and we were still in the car. And finally, we arrived in a small part of a small village. There was a villa, and I was sure that it's the house where we should go, because there were some rented cars there. And the address was perfect. And I think the driver asked if he can leave me safely there, and I said yes. I didn't have any money with me. That was the biggest problem, so I could pay the taxi driver. Unfortunately, I had to pay the train ticket again because of some bureaucratic problems, so all my cash was spent. And I couldn't phone the taxi driver because he gave me his number, but what can I talk to him? So I can't tell him, come back, please, because... So what happened, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and no one answered my knocking. So I knocked again. And again, and the house was quiet. And I was there, editor-in-chief of the market leader wine magazine in Hungary, standing outside the street. The dogs were barking, and I had no idea what to do. I was very tired, of course, so I thought of maybe lying down. But just imagine if they wake up in the morning and I see me lying there like a homeless. So what a message of my country, which I represent. So after half an hour of hopeless knocking, I gave it up. Well, I tried to call Sarah, but her phone was switched off. So I decided to walk. but it was just the middle of a vineyard, and there were lights somewhere. So I tried to walk, but it was dark and mud. So I was walking in mud in a vineyard. And I said, what a nice way to know the Bordeaux grape varieties. So it should be a Merlot, perhaps. It must be a Grand Cru, of course. And it's very nice walking in it. Who else have the same experience which I have now, being so close to the main point of the wine region? So I kept walking. I tried to find a railway station, but there was no train. Tried to find a bus station, no bus. Tried to find a place to sleep, nothing. So I walked and walked to the next village and so on. Finally, there was a baker man who gave me a lift to the end of Bordeaux, but it was still at the end of the city, and it was still only 4:30. And in Bordeaux, I don't know if you have ever tried, but there's not a single bench you can sit down. Nothing. So in the morning, I finally arrived back to the railway station, and I could have a shower for €1. So it was a bit of refreshment, and I still had some money for a coffee. So I was okay. Had a shower, had a coffee, and then Sarah Kemp called me, and she says, "Oh, I've just heard that you were not there." And I said, "Yes, I was not there. I tried to be there, but you were not there." It turned out that the girls working for Decanter, English magazine, were drinking with some Hungarian boys at the exhibition, and they were so drunk that they couldn't hear me knocking. And Sarah was somewhere else. She had a party with a different group, so she was not in the house at the moment. So Sarah was very sorry, and she tried to comfort me, or how to say. So she was sorry, she wanted to say excuse or whatever. So finally I went to Vinexpo. I was very tired, of course, because I didn't sleep a single minute. And her idea to comfort me was to introduce me to the biggest guys of the wine world. So the top leaders of Bordeaux Grand Crus and Taylors from Portugal. And, you know, I was there with red eyes and couldn't concentrate anything. So I think it wasn't the best idea to comfort me. So finally I met some Hungarian guys who were exhibiting there, and they took me. We had a lot of sparkling. At some time, everything was all the same for me. So we had a lot of champagne, sparkling from Hungary. And they decided to take me to the ocean to have something good, to get something good out of this Bordeaux trip. So they took me to the ocean. It was wonderful, beautiful, and I was so tired. And I thought, what a relief will be to walk into the ocean. Hungary doesn't have a sea, so ocean is something magic for me. So I took off my shoes, ran into the ocean, and then I realized that I have such big blisters on my sole because of all night walking that it was so painful. That was the worst experience of this trip. But finally, of course, we had a nice dinner, and I got home safely, and this was just one trip of Bordeaux. And last June I went to Bordeaux, which was marvelous, so that's not my overall opinion of this wine region. Just, I would like to tell you that you can expect anything if you travel, and the ending is missing.
Very good. Oh, who's next?
I tremble quand même. Some of you may not know what a shaggy dog story is, but you soon will. If you've not heard the expression shaggy dog story, I believe in recycling. I hope you all do too. And I think that stories can be recycled. And I have recycled this story since the late 1970s when I was first told it. A few years later, I started to teach on California wine. I don't believe we have any Americans here, do we? So, no, that's okay, good. That's excellent news. So this is the story, in some ways, that I was told. This happened sometime, apparently, the basis of this story, the beginning and the end, is true. And some of you Americans that are in the audience of a certain age might be able to verify it, but I'm not sure. But apparently it was true. So in the mid-70s, late 70s, there was a very large American winery doing reasonably well. And once a year, they would invite their distributors and the liquor store owners from around the whole of the States, anyone that could get to California. And they would have like an open day, and they would show them the vineyard, the winery, present the wines of that year, and generally give them a good time. And in those days, it was all about motivating them to sell, okay? So, for a start, before they were allowed to taste any wine, they had to come into a grand hall like this. And all these liquor store guys and girls were all sitting there, all these distributors. And the boss came up and he said, I want to tell you, I want to share with you, forgive me guys, okay? I want to share with you my wines and how they are made. You need to understand the love and the care we put into these. So first of all, remember this is the mid-late 70s. So understand that we now have the technical means to find the best clones. We've obviously planted the very best clones on the very best rootstocks in that vineyard. And of course, we have the perfect terroir to put this in, okay? So we have those vines. Every year, we have the vineyard year. We have to prune. We prune, believe me, ladies and gentlemen, we prune lovingly. We prune every vine with passion. Through the year, we have to nurture those vines. Oh, yes, we do have a few problems, insects and so on. So sometimes we do have to spray. But all of this is a build-up to make the most beautiful, the healthiest, the most fabulous-looking ripe grapes that will go in to make the wine that you all know and love and will go and sell. So, we're building up to the most important time of the year, the harvest. Ladies and gentlemen, believe me, for the harvest, we only like to get young people to pick the grapes. Everything is hand-picked. Young people. We choose nice young men, and we prefer the girls to be virgins, if possible. Their fingers are more sensitive. We believe this is very, very important. We pick the grapes. Of course, we control the temperature. You know that is very important. We're in the mid-70s, late 70s. Very important. We control the temperature. We have equipped our magnificent new winery that you are going to see later. We're going to take you all around the winery. We've equipped that with the very best of modern technology. It is gleaming, it is shining, it is cutting edge, ladies and gentlemen. And finally, you can do lots of things with this story, you know. Finally, nearly finally, we come to bottle this wine. Bottling is a very important stage, you know. So we bottle this wine with great care, with love, with attention. But do you know what is most important when we bottle? We only hire really happy people on the bottling line. We insist they are happy people. Well, I know you all are ready to see round the winery and then to taste the wine and enjoy some lunch with us. So I really think I should bring this to a close before we start on our tour. But just before we go, maybe there are some questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, questions. And at this point in the story, a very large man stands up in the back of the audience and he says, yeah, I have a question. He said, I run a liquor store in the mid-state, in whatever it's called, state. And, you know, I run that liquor store there. Do you sell this shit in 3-gallon lots?
Hi, I'm Magnus. I'm from Sweden, and normally I work as an archaeologist. And at the last EWBC in Austria, I got some questions about wines in Sweden. And I knew that there were some guys making wines in different parts. So I decided to the next EWBC, I will bring a Swedish wine. As things got, I got to work down in south of Sweden, in a town called Kalmar, and I noticed that there was a winemaker rather close by. So I decided I'll score a couple of bottles there. And at the same time, I began working on a project, an old excavation that I hadn't worked with myself, done in the late 80s, early 90s, that hadn't been reported. And it turned out that the place where this site was just next to the vineyard. And this is quite a big one, an Iron Age site that covered a Mesolithic site. So we have a place with a history that spans back about 10,000 years with human activity. Of course, they didn't make wines in the Mesolithics, and most probably no wines either in the Iron Age in Sweden. They do today. And it got me thinking, what is the history of wine in Sweden? As a wine-producing land, we're quite young, say somewhere around 10 years or something like that, 15 years maybe. But there are quite a lot of finds, if you go back to old excavation reports, that shows a connection with wine in one way or another. During the late Neolithics, around 2000 BC, the weather was a bit warmer in Sweden. So the conditions were rather good for winemaking. And there are some odd finds from that period. You have some pollen from wine. This could, of course, be brought in with other material to Sweden. But you also have in ceramics imprints and parts of seeds from wine. These may be from raisins, they may be from something completely different, but it's somehow connected to wine. And if you go a bit further to the Bronze Age and Iron Age, you have lots of objects, mainly from Greece and from the Roman times. You have goblets, you have glasses, you have amphoras. And all this together shows a possibility of a land that has a tradition in drinking wine for quite a long while. So I began trying to get this into some posts. And the fun thing that I bind this a little bit together, because I haven't really gotten that far with as a game, but I'm trying to find several posts that will cover the story of wine in a country that doesn't produce wine, the export history of wine, as to say. It was the wine that I got at Vanborga on Öland has a big deer as the sign on the wine. A few of you perhaps saw it on the pre-party. And in the oldest graves, it's dated 8000 BC, you had beads made of teeth from deer. So somewhere the wine got connected from the oldest grave 10,000 years ago to the bottle made a couple of years ago and the symbol that they use. And I've seen this among colleagues, that this is also a way of building a story in a completely different way, that you get groups that normally wouldn't go to my wine blog, but who enters the wine blog and sees wines in a different way. So there are several ways to build the storytelling in ways that you didn't really expect from the beginning. And I think I stop with that.
Oscar Quevedo.
Hello, I'm Oscar and I'm from Portugal, from the north of Portugal. In the Douro Valley, where my family has been making wine for some decades, we thread the grapes in lagars, which are like 4 meters wide squares made out of stone, granite or schist. So it was in the lagar and I had the first experience of my life in winemaking. At that time we were making wine and port wine in my grandparents' cellar. It was a small place, small quantity, and when the grapes arrived to the lagar in the afternoon, I was invited. I was about 5, 6 years old to get in and tread some grapes. So the grapes were about just over my knee, and I found it very fun. So keep moving around, treading grapes, feeling the berries just crunching. Very nice sensation. But during the rest of the afternoon, the lagar kept just coming with more and more grapes and filling up. So at certain time, I found the lagar unattended. No one was around, and I thought, well, this is my turn to do it by myself. It's my opportunity to try to tread grapes alone. So I decided to jump to the lagar, and suddenly I had the must, the wine, just over my shoulder. So I was blocked and couldn't really move around, so could do nothing. I was lucky enough because there was an employee that saw me just blocked, almost sunking in must, and he just grabbed me, took me out, and put me some water over my head. And this experience was really help for my life, because every time that I go back to the lagar with my friends from the university every September, we have a kind of a fight. So nowadays I have the must just, well, it's 1 meter high, again above my knee, but I can easily block them and make them fall to the lagar, because I had the experience of treading grapes when they just block all your body. So if one day you go to the Douro Valley and you want to try to fight me in the lagar, you're probably gonna lose.
Bonjour, je suis Joao, je suis aussi portugais. J'aimerais très rapidement dire deux mots sur un wine blogger qui peut-être pas tellement connaît, mais qui, je pense que c'est quelqu'un vraiment important pour vin et aussi pour diversité. Je pense que c'est important quand on n'est pas un wine spectator, qu'on n'oublie jamais la diversité. C'est quelque chose qui, quelquefois, ne fait pas les grosses médias, mais c'est vraiment important. Parler des cépages qui sont moins connus, parler des petits vignerons. Alors, Joao Roseira est quelqu'un qui...
Maybe the rest of it in English.
J'aimerais aussi provoquer un peu... assez anglais, je pense. Hein. J'aimerais bien parler italien, mais je ne sais pas. Alors, je reste sur le français, parce que 100% anglais, c'est quand même un peu trop, je pense. Alors, Joao Roseira, c'est quelqu'un qui est venu en Europe, qui a fait... enfin, ça peut se lier un peu avec ce que Winch a dit. Pas tous les Américains sont stupides. Hein. Joao Roseira est venu en France, est venu surtout en France, et il a fait quelque chose qui... Enfin, un peu avec Helmut Lynch, c'est quelqu'un qui a essayé de trouver un autre vin français pour montrer à les Américains. Il était aussi quelqu'un très Internet, du début de Wine Lovers, et enfin tous les forums d'Amérique qui sont au début, je pense un peu de ce qui est le wine blogging today. Et il a fait aussi un blog, un blog qui est un peu difficile presque à commenter parce qu'il a parlé de son tumeur. Il est mort il y a un mois à peu près. Et il a fait, même avec son tumeur, il a fait du humeur. Il a fait une chose vraiment, je pense, difficile, courageuse. Alors je vous invite à essayer de trouver Joao Roseira sur Internet. Et aussi, comme hommage à son travail, de jamais oublier que la diversité, c'est vraiment important. Merci.
Excellent. Excellent. And we're finishing with the reason I come to the EWBC.
Okay, it's my part. It's actually nothing to laugh about. It's a quite personal story about me, EWBC. It happened to me in March 2008. I've been a guy, not double the size like today, but nearly. And yeah, I got a heavy heart attack, with, which I break down and been nearly dying, faced the death and got a big heart operation. So went to hospital and, you know, I just did it. It was only a small piece, but anyway, I'm still alive. And when you're in hospital, you are in special rooms and you've got these electronic machines around you. There is no mobile phone, there is no computer, nothing. All what is working your brain, you are able to think, but that's all. The doctors do the job for you. It's not anymore you who can make decisions. You can't say you want to toilet. It's the doctors which tell you you should go to the toilet. After a few weeks of recovering, I get rid of these electronic machines, and the mediciners start talking to you, and they say, all right, you just made it, but for the rest of your life, you should stop smoking. So, all right, let's stop smoking, no problem. The next thing, for the rest of your life, you should start, eat healthy things, not too much meat, more vegetable. All right, so we go to eat vegetables. Exactly, it's working nicely. Then they come to you and they tell you, you should stop drinking alcohol and wine. This was quite a problem, and it was the time I got into my hospital room internet. And I started going back to my wine blog, started serving again. But you know, when you've got a lot of time to read, you start reading outside your world. So I started reading the English wine blogs. And I saw there's going on a story in August in La Rioja, the first European Wine Bloggers Conference. Going to a wine country, going drinking wine, going meeting people, makes me really unbelievable optimistic. So I decided to involve myself. So I filled in the forms. I said I will come. I didn't told anybody in Germany. No doctors did know or anybody else. They've been just funny. Of course, I've been recovering so quickly. It was like a wonder. They didn't believe what is going on. And for myself too, nobody can tell you what happened. Just 3 months after having such a heavy heart attack, traveling to La Rioja was actually quite a sensation. And for me personally, and I never will forget this evening and this very first blogger conference, this evening with the Adega boys going to this La Fiesta, drinking wine and eating and don't caring about what anybody is telling you about healthy food and I don't know what. It's just keep in mind, do what you want to do and think about healthiness, but not all the time. And going to the bloggers conference is always for me a milestone, and just let yourself go for these 2-3 days, and going back home to the business as usual is all right. Thank you very much.